The stars looked different when you were hunting. Commander Thexamol had learned this truth during his 300 cycles of service with the Galactic Dominion's elite strike force. Tonight, the stars seemed especially cold as his ship drifted through the void near the restricted Sol system. The bridge of the Vaktar warship hummed with quiet tension. 12 of the galaxy's most dangerous warriors sat at their stations, each one a veteran of countless battles. Thexmol's 4 eyes scanned the tactical display with practiced ease. His species, the Cathari, had evolved from pack hunters on a world where hesitation meant death. But even his predator instincts felt uneasy about their current mission. "Commander," called out Zephyrus from the sensor station. The Void Hunter's tentacles danced across the controls with fluid grace. Her people came from the deep ocean trenches of Miral Prime, where they had learned to strike from darkness without warning. "We have contact. 1 vessel, bearing 27 Mark 4. Thexmol leaned forward in his command chair. The metal groaned under his weight. "Distance?" 50,000 units and closing fast, Zephyrus replied. Her voice carried the whistle-click accent of her water-breathing species. "The ship matches the profile we were given. It's definitely from the Death World." A ripple of unease passed through the bridge crew. Everyone knew about Earth. The stories spread through every cantina and command center in the galaxy. A world so hostile that its dominant species had to fight just to survive each day. Gravity that would crush most beings. Weather that could kill with invisible poison in the air. Creatures so vicious that the planet's own inhabitants called them monsters, and now the humans were venturing beyond their cursed world. "Bring us to battle stations," Thexamol ordered. Warning lights bathed the bridge in red. "Activate all weapon systems." Krilthak, the Bone Crusher, turned from his position at the weapons console. The massive warrior stood nearly 3 meters tall, his chitinous armor gleaming under the emergency lighting. His homeworld of Vectar had produced the finest heavy infantry in the galaxy, beings capable of crushing starship hulls with their bare claws. "All systems ready, Commander," Krilthak rumbled. His voice sounded like grinding stone. "Shall I target their engines?" "Not yet," Thexmol said. He studied the approaching vessel on the main screen. The human ship looked wrong somehow. Too smooth, too clean. Where were the battle scars? Where were the weapon ports that should cover every surface of a warship from such a violent world? "Sir," called Mordak from the communications station. The Titan Slayer was perhaps the most famous warrior on the ship. He had single-handedly destroyed a rebel fortress on Kalim 7, earning his title by defeating 3 war machines in personal combat. "They're broadcasting on standard frequencies." "Let me hear it," Thexmol commanded. The bridge speakers crackled to life. A voice emerged, speaking in the harsh, angular sounds of human language. The universal translator struggled for a moment before converting the words. "Unknown vessel. This is Captain Li Wu of the civilian transport Soul's Pride. Please identify yourself and state your intentions." "Civilian transport?" Thexmol's mandibles clicked together in confusion. The intelligence reports had been clear. Humans were warriors, bred on a world that demanded constant battle for survival. They had no civilians in the way other species understood the term. Every human was a potential soldier, hardened by their terrible planet. "Commander," Zephyrus whispered, her tentacles quivering with alarm. "I'm reading their biosignatures now. The crew's vital signs are unusual." "Explain." "Heart rates are elevated across the entire ship. Stress hormones are off the scale. Brain activity suggests they're in active combat mode. Zephyrus paused, her large black eyes widening. Sir, whatever they're doing over there, it's pushing their bodies to the absolute limit. Thexmol felt his blood chill. So the intelligence was correct. These humans were so adapted to violence that they maintained combat readiness even during routine space travel. Their transport ship was probably filled with weapons and armor, disguised to look harmless. "Open a channel," he ordered. "Channel open, sir." Thexmol straightened in his chair. "Human vessel Soul's Pride, this is Commander Thexmol of the Galactic. Dominion Enforcement Division, you are operating in restricted space. Prepare to be boarded for inspection." There was a pause. Then the human captain's voice returned, sounding strangely casual given the stress readings they were detecting. "Boarding? Well, I guess that's fine. Fair warning, though. My crew is pretty busy right now. We're having some serious downtime, if you know what I mean." Downtime? Thexmol exchanged glances with his officers. The humans were obviously using some kind of military code. Downtime probably meant they were preparing for battle or conducting training exercises. That would explain the extreme physiological readings. "Sir," Krillthak growled, "their weapons are still powered down. Either they're incredibly confident, or this is a trap." "Or both," Mordak added grimly. "Remember the reports from the Altair incident? Human soldiers were observed laughing while under heavy fire. Their pain tolerance is beyond measurement." Thexamol nodded slowly. The Altair incident had become required reading for all Dominion military personnel. Human mercenaries had held off an entire siege for 30 days, treating the whole affair like some kind of game. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found the humans joking and sharing stories while surrounded by the bodies of their enemies. "Maintain distance," Thexmol ordered. "Prepare the boarding shuttle. Select our best warriors for the assault team." "Sir," Zephyrus spoke up hesitantly, "should we call for reinforcements? If these humans are conducting military exercises, we might be walking into more than we can handle." The commander considered this. His ship carried 12 elite warriors, each one capable of taking on 100 normal soldiers. But these were humans. The mathematics of normal warfare didn't apply to beings from a death world. "Negative," he decided. "If we show weakness now, they might interpret it as an invitation to attack. We proceed with the boarding action." On the main screen, the human vessel continued its approach. It looked so harmless, so clean and peaceful. But Thexmol could hear the stressed breathing of his crew. Everyone knew the stories. Humans were polite and friendly right up until the moment they killed you. "Boarding party, report to Shuttle Bay 3, Thexmol announced ship-wide. "Full combat gear. Expect heavy resistance." As his warriors prepared for what might be the fight of their lives, Thexmol stared at the innocent-looking transport ship. The humans claimed to be having downtime, but their bodies screamed of impending battle. Whatever these Deathworld creatures were planning, his team would be ready. He just hoped they would be enough. The boarding shuttle cut through space like a blade. Inside, 6 of the galaxy's most feared warriors checked their weapons one final time. Thexmol led the team himself, his personal honor requiring that he face the Deathworld creatures directly. Krillthak sat across from him, the Bone Crusher's massive frame barely fitting in the shuttle seat. His species had natural armor that could stop plasma rounds, and claws that could tear through starship hulls. Next to him, Zephyrus floated in her portable water tank, her tentacles weaving patterns of nervous energy through the fluid. The Void Hunter had never failed to eliminate a target. Mordak, the Titan Slayer, occupied the rear of the shuttle, his 4 arms checking different weapon systems. His people from the high-gravity world of Corinth had reflexes faster than thought itself. They said he could dodge laser fire. Beside him sat Kelnara the Silent Death, her insectoid features hidden behind a breathing mask. Her homeworld's atmosphere was pure poison to most species, and her natural stealth capabilities made her nearly invisible. Rounding out the team was Vextor, a energy being from the Spiral Nebula who could phase through solid matter at will. Remember, Thexmol spoke into his comm unit as their shuttle approached the human vessel. These creatures evolved on a death world. Everything about them is designed for killing. They may appear harmless, but do not let your guard down for even a moment. Understood, Commander, came the replies from his team. The shuttle's sensors showed the human ship growing larger ahead of them. Still no weapons fire. Still no signs of defensive measures. Either the humans were supremely confident in their abilities, or they were setting the perfect trap. Bio readings are still showing extreme stress levels from the human crew, reported the shuttle pilot through the comm. Whatever they're doing over there, they're pushing themselves to the breaking point. Thexmol nodded grimly. Humans were known to enter combat trances that allowed them to ignore pain and fatigue. They were probably preparing for the boarding, action with meditation techniques that would seem like torture to normal species. "Docking in 30 seconds, the pilot announced. The warriors tensed. Each one had fought in 100 battles, faced down monsters and machines of war, but none of them had ever encountered beings from a death world before. The stories were legendary. Humans who fought on after losing limbs. Humans who laughed while bleeding. Humans who treated warfare like art. "Phase us through their hull," Thexmol ordered Vextor. "We go in fast and quiet." The energy being flickered with acknowledgement. His crystalline form began to glow as he prepared to use his abilities to transport the entire team through the human ship's walls. It was a risky move, but it would give them the element of surprise. The shuttle touched the human vessel's hull with barely a whisper. Vextor's energy field expanded, wrapping around the boarding party like a glowing cocoon. Reality twisted, and suddenly they were standing inside the enemy ship. Thexmol blinked, adjusting to the new environment. They had materialized in what appeared to be a large open area. Soft lighting illuminated comfortable seating arranged around various electronic displays. The air was warm and carried the scent of some kind of food preparation. But that wasn't what made the warriors freeze in shock. The humans were there, just as expected. But they weren't preparing for battle. They weren't even looking at the boarding party. Instead, they sat in their chairs, staring intently at glowing screens, their hands moving rapidly over control surfaces. One human, a young male, glanced up briefly when the warriors appeared. He had dark hair and wore simple civilian clothing. "Oh, hey there," he said casually, then immediately returned his attention to his screen. "Park Hyun," he called out to another human without taking his eyes off his display. "We've got visitors." Park Hyun, another young male, raised one hand in greeting while shouting something in human language at his screen. The words came too, fast for the translator to process, but the tone was clearly aggressive. His heart rate was visible in the pulse at his neck, beating so fast it should have killed him. "What?" Krilthak whispered, his weapon halfway raised. A female human looked up from her station and smiled. She had short black hair and kind eyes that showed no fear, despite the elevated stress readings that must be flooding her system. "Oh, you must. Be the boarding party. I'm Kim Min. Would you like some coffee? Or maybe some snacks?" The warriors stood frozen. This made no sense. The humans were exhibiting all the physical signs of mortal combat. Their breathing was rapid, their pupils dilated, their muscles tense with adrenaline. But they were acting like they were at a social gathering. "Sir," Zephyrus whispered through the team comm, "I'm still reading extreme stress responses from all of them. Whatever they're doing, it's pushing their bodies beyond normal limits." Another human, this one slightly older with glasses, stood up from his station. "Choi Dal," he introduced himself, holding a steaming cup of dark liquid. "Sorry about the noise. We're in the middle of a really intense session." Intense session? Thexmol's mind raced. This had to be some kind of military training exercise. The humans were so dedicated to combat readiness that they practiced warfare scenarios even during peaceful transport missions. The human called Choi Dal gestured toward the screens. "We've been at this for 6 hours straight. Nam Su over there hasn't even taken a bathroom break." He pointed to a female human whose hands were moving so fast over her controls they were almost a blur. Her face showed the kind of concentration normally seen in sniper marksmen. 6 hours of continuous combat training, Mordak muttered. No wonder their stress levels are off the charts. But there was something else that bothered Thexmol. The humans weren't wearing any armor. They had no visible weapons. Their clothing was soft and comfortable, not at all suited for battle. Yet their bodies were responding as if they were in mortal danger. "Excuse me," he finally managed to say, his voice carrying the authority of command. "We are here to conduct an inspection of your vessel." The humans looked up briefly, nodded politely, then returned to their activities. One of them, a young woman with long hair, made an excited sound and pointed at her screen. "Did you see that? Did you see that shot?" she called out to her companions. "Shot?" Thexmol's hand moved instinctively toward his weapon. But the human wasn't holding anything that looked like a gun. She was manipulating some kind of control device with multiple buttons and moving parts. "Yeah, Yun-Tae, that was incredible," called back Park Hyun. "How did you even see him behind that cover?" "Cover? Behind cover?" The humans were definitely conducting some kind of tactical exercise. But where were the training targets? Where were the simulation chambers? Kelnara, the Silent Death, activated her stealth field and began moving around the room. Her advanced sensors could detect hidden weapons, concealed armor, anything that might explain what they were seeing. What she found made no sense at all. "Commander," she whispered through a private channel, "there are no weapons in this room. No armor. No training equipment. Just furniture and those electronic displays." Thexmol studied the humans more carefully. They were completely absorbed in whatever they were doing. Their stress responses suggested they were fighting for their lives, but they showed no awareness of the armed warriors who had just materialized in their midst. Either these Deathworld creatures were so confident in their abilities that they literally ignored armed threats, or something else was happening here, something the Galactic Dominion had never encountered before. "Sir," Vexter's energy patterns flickered with confusion. Should we wait for them to finish their training exercise?" Thexmol didn't know how to answer. In all his years of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. Warriors who treated mortal combat like casual entertainment. Beings who could maintain social politeness while their bodies screamed with battle stress. What kind of creatures had they encountered? Lieutenant Nam Su finally looked up from her screen after completing what appeared to be an extremely challenging tactical maneuver. Her face was flushed with excitement, her breathing rapid from whatever intense activity she had been performing. She blinked several times as if adjusting to the presence of armed aliens in her recreational space. "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry," she exclaimed, standing up quickly. "I didn't even notice you were here. We get really focused during raids." She gestured apologetically toward her teammates. "I'm Namsu, Communications Officer. Are you here?" For the inspection Captain Lee mentioned. Raids. Thexmol felt his confusion deepen. The humans were conducting military raids during what they called downtime. No wonder their stress levels were beyond measurement. "We are conducting a standard boarding inspection," he replied carefully, watching for any sign of aggression from the humans. But Namsu just smiled warmly. "Of course. Let me know if you need anything. Water? Food? We have some really good snacks." She gestured toward a small area where various packages of what looked like sustenance items were arranged. "Though I should warn you, we're probably going to be pretty loud for the next hour or so. We're attempting a really difficult dungeon." Dungeon? Thexmol's translator struggled with the word. In most galactic languages, dungeons were prison facilities or underground fortifications. Were the humans planning to assault a prison complex? Krilthak, the Bone Crusher, stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the small human. "What kind of weapons do you use for these raids?" he asked, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. Namsu looked puzzled for a moment, then laughed. "Weapons? Oh, you mean our gear?" She pointed to her screen. "I'm running a support build. Right now. Mostly healing and buffs. But Yuntai over there is our main DPS." The warriors exchanged confused glances. DPS? Buffs? These were not terms in any military manual they knew. Yuntai, the young man who had been making aggressive vocalizations, suddenly let out a loud shout of triumph. "Yes, critical hit. Did you see that damage?" He turned to his companions with a huge grin. "Guys, I just hit for over 9,000. 9,000 what?" Thexmol wondered. Enemy casualties? Structural damage points? Whatever it was, Yuntai seemed extremely pleased with his destructive capabilities. "Yuntai is really good at the damage-dealing role," Namsu explained proudly. "He's got the best reflexes on the ship. Watch this." She called out to Yuntai in human language. He responded by demonstrating some kind of rapid finger movement technique on his control device. His hands moved so fast they became a blur, manipulating dozens of different inputs in a complex sequence that took less than 3 seconds to complete. "Incredible," whispered Mordak. "Those reflexes are faster than any warrior I've ever seen." Krilthak decided to run a deep scan on Yuntai, hoping to understand what kind of combat enhancements the humans were using. What his sensors revealed made his chitinous armor plates rattle with shock. The human's body was flooded with stress hormones. His heart rate was approaching the theoretical maximum for his species. His brain showed activity patterns similar to a fighter pilot in active combat. His muscle tension suggested he was ready to spring into action at any moment, but the most disturbing part was that he seemed to be enjoying it. "Commander," Krilthak whispered through their private channel, "this human's physiology suggests he should be in severe medical distress, but his facial expressions and body language indicate pleasure. Extreme pleasure. How is that possible? How could any creature find joy in the kind of stress that would kill most galactic species?" "Hey!" called out another human, a cheerful-looking male named Bei Ho. "You guys want to see what we're doing? You look confused." Before anyone could object, Bei Ho had gestured them over to his station. On his screen was a complex three-dimensional environment filled with detailed structures and moving figures. "This is our current dungeon. he explained enthusiastically. "We're trying to clear the Crimson Depths. It's a really hard one. We've been working on it for weeks." Thexmol stared at the screen. The environment looked like a detailed military simulation. There were tactical positions, defensive structures, and multiple units moving in coordinated patterns. But the level of detail was incredible. Every surface, every shadow, every movement looked completely realistic. "Is this a training simulation?" he asked slowly. "Training?" Bei Ho looked confused. "No, this is a game, for fun." He paused, studying the alien's expression. "You know, entertainment? Leisure activity?" The words hit Thexamol like a physical blow. Leisure activity. These humans were voluntarily subjecting themselves to extreme combat stress for entertainment. The impossible readings, the elevated heart rates, the tactical coordination, it was all recreational. "You do this for pleasure?" Zephyrus asked, her tentacles quivering with disbelief. "Of course," Bei Ho grinned. "It's amazing, right? Look at this boss fight we're about to attempt." On the screen, a massive creature appeared. Even in digital form, it looked terrifying. The human players immediately began coordinating their response, calling out tactical instructions with the precision of military units. "Nam Su, keep us buffed. Yun Tae, focus fire on the weak points. Choi Dal, watch for the area attacks." Their coordination was flawless. Their reaction times were superhuman. Their stress responses were off the charts, and they were doing it all by choice, for fun, during their rest period. "This is impossible," Mordak whispered. "No species seeks out stress for pleasure. It goes against every survival instinct." But as they watched, the humans threw themselves into their recreational activity with the kind of intensity normally reserved for life-or-death situations. They sweated, they shouted, they experienced genuine fear and excitement as their digital avatars faced simulated dangers. "How often do you do this?" Thexmol asked weakly. "Every day when we're off duty," Namsu replied cheerfully. "Sometimes for 8 or 10 hours straight. We're pretty hardcore gamers. 8 to 10 hours, every day, voluntarily. But why?" Kelnara stepped out of her stealth field, her insectoid features expressing confusion. "Why would you choose to experience stress?" The humans looked at each other as if the question didn't make sense. "Because it's fun," Park Hyun said, as if explaining something obvious to a child. "The challenge, the teamwork, the excitement. When you finally beat a really hard boss, it feels amazing. Plus," added Kim Min, "it helps us relax after work." Relax. They found this relaxing. Thexmol felt his worldview crumbling. These creatures from the death world didn't just survive constant danger. They had evolved to crave it. When actual threats weren't available, they created artificial ones sophisticated enough to trigger genuine survival responses. "Commander." Vextor's energy patterns flickered with alarm. "If this represents their idea of leisure activity, what must their actual military capabilities be like?" Thexamol couldn't answer. He was beginning to understand that they had stumbled upon something far beyond their comprehension. These weren't just warriors from a dangerous world. These were beings so adapted to mortal peril that they recreated it for pleasure during peacetime. What kind of monsters had the galaxy unleashed? Dr. Anji appeared in the doorway, carrying a cup of the dark liquid the humans called coffee. She was a small woman with gentle eyes and a calm manner, but her presence immediately caught the attention of the alien warriors. Unlike the others, She didn't seem to be participating in the intense activities that were causing such extreme stress responses. "Oh, visitors," she said with a warm smile. "I'm Dr. Anji, the ship's psychologist. I see you've met our gaming enthusiasts." She gestured toward the humans who were still deeply engaged with their screens, fingers flying over controls as they coordinated another complex tactical maneuver. "Psychologist?" Thexmol stepped forward. Perhaps this human could explain the impossible behavior they were witnessing. "Can you tell us why your crew voluntarily subjects themselves to such extreme physiological stress?" Dr. Anji tilted her head thoughtfully. "You mean the gaming? It's quite fascinating from a psychological perspective, actually. Humans have this unique trait. We actively seek out challenges and stressful situations because overcoming them triggers our reward systems." She gestured for the aliens to follow her to a quieter corner of the room, though the enthusiastic shouts and rapid conversations from the gamers continued in the background. "You see," she continued, "our species evolved on a world that was constantly trying to kill us. Predators, natural disasters, hostile weather, disease, survival required us to be constantly alert and ready for danger. Over millions of years, our brains developed to find satisfaction in overcoming challenges." "But these are not real challenges," Zephyrus protested, her tentacles writhing with confusion. "They are artificial simulations." "That's the beautiful part," Dr. Anji replied. "Our brains don't really distinguish between real and simulated danger when the simulation is sophisticated enough. Look at Li Kyung over there." She pointed to a young woman who was staring intently at her screen. As they watched, Li Kyung suddenly jumped in her seat, letting out a small scream. Her heart rate spiked dramatically, and she gripped her controls with white knuckles. "She's playing what we call a horror game," Dr. Anji explained. "She knows intellectually that she's completely safe, but her brain is responding as if she's in actual mortal danger. And she loves it. Loves it." Krilthak's voice was barely a whisper. "She loves experiencing mortal terror?" "Absolutely. The adrenaline rush, the sense of triumph when she survives a particularly scary section. It's like a drug to us." Dr. Anji sipped her coffee calmly. "Li Kyung probably has enough stress hormones in her system right now to stop the heart of most galactic species." As if to prove the point, Li Kyung let out another startled cry, then immediately laughed with delight. "Did you see that jump scare? My heart is pounding. This game is amazing." Mordak, the Titan Slayer, who had personally faced down war machines without flinching, took a step backward. She's enjoying being terrified." "Oh, that's nothing," Dr. Anji said cheerfully. "Watch Shin Wo over there." She indicated another human, this one manipulating controls with intense concentration. On his screen, some kind of vehicle was racing through a dangerous course at incredible speeds, barely missing obstacles that would mean instant death. "Racing simulation," Dr. Anji explained. "He's traveling at speeds that would be fatal if he made a single mistake. His hands are literally trembling with adrenaline, his reaction time is pushed to the absolute limit, and his stress response is through the roof." Sure enough, Shin Wo's hands were shaking slightly as he made microsecond adjustments to his controls. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the comfortable temperature. His breathing was rapid and shallow. "This level of stress should impair his performance," Kelnara observed. "No warrior can maintain peak efficiency under such conditions." "Actually, humans perform better under stress," Dr. Anji replied. "Up to a point, anyway. We call it being in the zone. Watch." On Shin Wo's screen, his vehicle approached what looked like an impossible turn at tremendous speed. The alien warriors tensed, expecting to witness a catastrophic failure. Instead, Shin Wo executed a perfect maneuver, threading between obstacles with precision that defied physics. Yes, Shin Wo shouted, pumping his fist in the air. Did you see that? Perfect racing line! My time just beat the world record! World record? Thexmol asked faintly. Competition with other humans across the planet, Dr. Anji explained. There are millions of them attempting the same challenges. The competition drives them to push their limits even further. Millions. Millions of humans voluntarily subjecting themselves to extreme stress, competing to see who could handle the most pressure, who could perform impossible feats under the worst conditions. But surely, Vextor's energy patterns flickered desperately. Surely they must rest sometimes. They cannot maintain this level of intensity constantly, Dr. Anji laughed. Oh, you should see Han Sol during strategy games. He'll sit there for 12 hours straight, managing virtual armies, coordinating complex battles, making decisions that affect thousands of digital units. His brain activity during those sessions rivals that of actual military commanders during real warfare. She pointed to Han Sol, who was indeed deeply engaged with what appeared to be a massive battle simulation. Multiple screens showed different aspects of a complex conflict, and he was managing dozens of different variables simultaneously. The cognitive load he's handling right now would cause most species to suffer mental breakdown, Dr. Anji continued. But look at his expression. Han Sol's face showed intense concentration, but also unmistakable pleasure. He was enjoying the overwhelming complexity, thriving under the pressure of managing impossible amounts of information. This is what humans call fun, Dr. Anji said simply. The alien warriors stood in stunned silence. Everything they thought they knew about biology, psychology, and survival instincts was being shattered by these creatures who actively sought out the very conditions that other species desperately tried to avoid. Doctor, Thexmol said carefully, what do humans do when they encounter real danger, actual combat situations? Dr. Anji's expression grew thoughtful. Well, that's interesting. Real combat is usually less stressful for us than these games. Less stressful? Mordak's four arms hung limply at his sides. Games are designed to push us to our absolute limits, she explained. Real combat, by comparison, often seems almost manageable. We've been training for it our whole lives without even realizing it. Krilthak ran another scan on the gaming humans. The readings were even more disturbing than before. Park Jin, who had joined the group, was now managing 3 different high-stress games simultaneously while conducting a video call with family members back on Earth. This one, Krilthak whispered, is multitasking at levels that should be neurologically impossible, and he's doing it casually as if it requires no special effort. Dr. Anji nodded. Oh, yes. Park Jin is quite talented. He holds several multitasking records in our gaming community. Records. They kept records of who could handle the most impossible stress loads. Doctor, Thexmol's voice was barely audible, if this represents human recreational activity, what are your actual soldiers like? Dr. Anji smiled, but something in her expression made the alien warriors step backward instinctively. Well, she said pleasantly, our soldiers think these games are pretty relaxing. Captain Li Wu finally appeared in the recreational area, carrying his own cup of coffee and looking completely relaxed, despite the chaos of stress-induced activity surrounding him. He was a middle-aged man with graying hair and kind eyes, the sort of person who looked like he would be more comfortable gardening than commanding a starship. Sorry about the delay, he said cheerfully to the alien boarding party. I was finishing up some paperwork. I see you've met the gaming crew. He gestured casually toward his crew members who were still engaged in their impossibly stressful recreational activities. Hope they haven't been too loud, Captain, Thexmall managed to say, though his voice sounded strange even to himself. Your crew exhibits stress levels that should be fatal, yet they claim this is leisure. Captain Li Wu chuckled. Oh, this is pretty mild, actually. You should see them during the really intense gaming sessions. Sometimes they'll go for 24 hours straight during major tournaments. He sipped his coffee thoughtfully. Though, I have to limit those now. Last time, Park Jin got so excited during a championship match that he actually passed out from adrenaline overload. Passed out from excitement, Zephyrus whispered. Yeah, but he was fine after a quick nap, Captain Lee continued. He still talks about that match. Says it was the most fun he'd ever had. The most fun. The human had literally pushed himself until his body shut down from stress, and he considered it the highlight of his recreational experience. Captain, Mordak, the Titan Slayer, spoke carefully. What do your people do when they want to truly relax? Well, some of them play easier games, Captain Lee replied. Though personally, I find those a bit boring. I prefer the puzzle games that really make you think. You know, the ones that give you headaches after a few hours. Headaches. Pain was part of their relaxation process. But if you want to see real relaxation, Captain Lee continued, you should visit our entertainment districts on Earth. We have these things called extreme sports that people do on weekends. Jumping off cliffs with nothing but fabric wings, racing vehicles at deadly speeds, fighting each other in organized competitions. His eyes lit up with enthusiasm. My nephew does something called free climbing, where he scales vertical cliff faces using just his hands and feet. No safety equipment at all. No safety equipment? Krilthak's voice cracked. That's the whole point, Captain Lee explained. If you use safety equipment, it's not really challenging anymore. Takes all the fun out of it. The alien warriors stood, frozen as the implications sank in. These creatures considered mortal peril to be the minimum requirement for entertainment. Anything less was boring to them. Sir, Kelnara asked in a voice barely above a whisper, what happens when humans encounter? Actual combat? Real warfare? Captain Lee's expression grew thoughtful. Real combat? Well, that's usually less exciting than our games, to be honest. Real enemies aren't as creative as game designers. They don't come up with challenges that are quite as inventive. Less exciting than their games. Real warfare was less exciting than their recreational activities. Plus, Captain Lee added, in real combat, we have actual weapons and armor. That makes things much easier. In games, you have to work within artificial limitations. Much more challenging that way. Thexmol felt his legs growing weak. Through his communication implant, he could hear his ship's crew monitoring the conversation. The bridge had gone completely silent. Commander, came the voice of his communications officer through his earpiece. The Dominion fleet is requesting status updates. Admiral Kextar wants to know if we need reinforcements. Thexmall looked around the room at the humans who were casually engaging in activities that would mentally and physically destroy most galactic species. They were doing it for fun. They were enjoying it, and according to their captain, this was the mild version of their recreational pursuits. Sir, the communications officer prompted. Tell the Admiral, Thexmall said slowly. Tell him to maintain maximum distance from the human vessel. Sir? What about the boarding inspection? Thexmal watched as Park Jin successfully managed to coordinate 4 different high-stress activities simultaneously while laughing at something on his personal communication device. His stress readings were so far beyond normal parameters that the sensors couldn't calculate them properly. Tell the Admiral, Thexmal continued, that we are dealing with beings who voluntarily experience combat-level stress for entertainment. Tell him that their recreational activities exceed the difficulty of our most challenging military training programs. There was a long pause on the other end. Sir, should I tell him about the games? Tell him. Thexmal's voice was growing fainter. Tell him that what we're seeing represents the relaxing end of human leisure activities. Another pause. Sir, Admiral Kextar is asking what we should do if the humans decide to visit our territory. Thexmal looked at Captain Li Wu, who was now cheerfully explaining to Vextor how humans had developed hundreds of different categories of recreational stress, each designed to push different aspects of their physiology and psychology to the breaking point. Tell the Admiral to add Earth to the Do Not Disturb Under Any Circumstances list, Thexmal said. Maximum classification level. But, sir, what about first contact protocols? Diplomatic relations? Look around you, Thexmal whispered into his communicator. Look at what they call relaxation. If this is how they spend their leisure time, imagine what their soldiers are like. Imagine what they do when they're actually trying to be dangerous. Through the comm channel, he could hear the bridge crew observing the human activities through the boarding party's sensor feeds. The silence was deafening. Commander, came another voice, this one belonging to Mordak. I think I'm having some kind of psychological breakdown. Thexmal turned to see the Titan Slayer sitting in a corner, staring with wide eyes at Li Kyung, who was now playing 3 different horror games simultaneously while eating snacks and chatting casually with her friends. She's experiencing multiple sources of artificial terror, Mordak whispered, while consuming sustenance and engaging in social bonding. Her multitasking abilities under extreme stress are beyond measurement. Commander, Krilthak reported, his voice hollow. My scanners have given up trying to analyze their stress responses. The readings are simply marked as impossible. Captain Li Wu noticed the alien's distress and walked over with concern. Are you folks okay? You look a little overwhelmed. Here, let me get you some water. He moved to help them with the same gentle concern one might show to trauma victims. We're fine, Thexmal lied. We should probably return to our ship now. Of course, Captain Li said kindly. But before you go, would you like some souvenirs? We have some beginner-level games. That might be fun for your crew. Very easy ones, designed for people who are just starting to build up their stress tolerance. Beginner-level games, designed to build stress tolerance. That's very kind, Thexmal managed. But I don't think our species are quite ready for human entertainment. No problem at all, Captain Li smiled. But if you ever want to try, just let us know. We love introducing people to gaming. It's such a great way to unwind after a hard day. As the boarding party prepared to leave, Engineer Choi Min looked up from his station, where he had been live-streaming the entire encounter to something called Earth Gaming Communities. Hey, he called out cheerfully, the folks back home think you guys are adorable. They're already working on some custom games designed for your species, low-intensity stuff to start with. They're really excited about making alien friends. Custom games, designed specifically for their species. Low intensity by human standards. The alien warriors fled. Back on their ship, Thexmal filed the shortest mission report in Galactic Dominion history. Humans confirmed as incomprehensibly dangerous. Recommend immediate reclassification to maximum. Threat level based on leisure activities alone. Do not engage under any circumstances. The report was classified at the highest levels and became required reading for every military commander in the galaxy. Earth was quietly added to the list of worlds that should never, under any circumstances, be disturbed. Meanwhile, Captain Li Wu sent a friendly message to the Dominion ship, thanking them for the visit and inviting them back any time. He also included a care package of the mildest human games he could find, hoping to help his new alien friends gradually build up their tolerance for fun. The package was ejected into space and destroyed by plasma cannon fire. But the memory of what they had witnessed would haunt the Vaktar warriors for the rest of their lives. They had seen the face of a species so adapted to mortal peril that they had to artificially create danger just to feel entertained. And somewhere in the back of every alien mind was the same terrifying question. If this was how humans relaxed, what were they like when they were actually trying to be dangerous?